Nubook 1. From Then to Now, Part 26. I went right to sleep and found myself in a new area. It was still by the ocean, but there was so much more to the surroundings. There was also a type of tree house that was built around several huge palm trees, which were about 20 feet or so above the ground, and had a stairway made from rope and tree branches that led up to it. I thought to myself that it was a very nice place, one in which I would like to live. It was of a natural look that I liked better than the buildings on the earth. Within myself I am a very simple man. Rebazar said that he lived in a natural hut with a dirt floor when he was on earth. It was a beautiful sunny day, and the ocean was a wonderful blue along with the sky. There were different types of palm trees everywhere along the shoreline and stretching back across the land. This place had some large hills that were set back from the beach a ways, that were covered with a lot of greenery. As I looked out over the ocean, there were big waves that continued to roll into the shore. Until I had that experience with the board, I had never noticed the waves as much before. As I was looking at all there is, I heard a voice call to me. "Goldie, come up here and see our new island place," said Shiss, waving to me from the tree house. I began to laugh as I walked up the stairway. When I reached the top, she gave me a hug and a kiss and showed me into the place. "Look, Goldie, it has a bed, so you don't have to sleep on the floor anymore," she said. "Did you build this place, Shiss?" I asked. She laughed and said, "Maybe." I sat on the bed and lay back, and so did she. "This place is great, and this is how I would like to live on the earth. I would be next to the ocean, in a simple house like this one," I said. "You will be living in some interesting places on the earth, Goldie, but none as good as here," she said. We talked for a while, and then went down to the water and swam in the shore. "The air here is always so pure and wonderful," I said, as we moved about in the shallow water. "I love all the levels, just like you, Goldie, because we can move so freely in them," she said. "You're right. We can go anywhere, and have all these wonderful places to ourselves," I said. After getting out of the water, we took a walk down the beach a ways, and then it was time for me to return. I woke up feeling so much better after sleeping in the bed. My body no longer ached. it felt very refreshed. The sun was just coming up, and so I prepared myself for the children when they would arrive. The school had what they called a clock that told the hour of the day. I found the idea very interesting, and it was a good gauge to determine the length of time I was to teach each day. Rosa had given me a lot of good advice on what subjects to teach and how long. She said that the basics were the most important: the reading, writing, and arithmetic. I had never really studied arithmetic, but I seemed sure that it couldn't be that hard. It was almost 8 o'clock, and the children were beginning to arrive. I greeted them as they came in the front door, along with their parents. After a little while, they were all in, and sitting rather quiet in their seats, as I stood at the front of the room and looked over how many there were. I counted about 24. No one said a word, so I started to talk and introduced myself. "Good morning, boys and girls. My name is Mr. Golden Wing. I will be your new teacher for a while, until Miss Sonia de la Cruz returns," I said, as I smiled to them. One little girl immediately raised her hand before I could say another word, and so I asked her to stand and tell me her name, and then ask her question. "My name is Susan, and I would like to know if you are going to be a nice teacher." I had to laugh, while some of the other children were doing the same thing. "Thank you for asking, Susan. I want to make sure your learning experience here is fun and beneficial for all of us. Does that answer your question?" I said. Susan said thank you, and then sat back down. There were more questions about myself, and where I was from, and how did I get my name, and so on. I talked with the children for most of the morning, and told them a few short stories I thought would interest them. All of us did a lot of laughing together, and I was beginning to relax within myself and feel so much better. I divided them up into age groups. I had some of the older children teaching the younger ones. The first day was just going over the basic routines and adjusting to what seemed to work for these children. By the end of the teaching day, at 5 o'clock, I needed a rest. I stood by the door as the children left. Susan was the last to leave, and said, "Thank you, Mr. Golden Wing. I know we will have fun in your class and learn so much." Then she put out her hand and shook mine. "Thank you, Miss Susan, and have a good evening," I said as she left. I went back and sat at my desk and thought about how the day went. I had to laugh at my new experience. It was great fun. I was now in the creative mode to present some of the real fun things that children love to learn about, and at the same time present to them the possibilities that lie within themselves. I thought about so many of the experiences I had from the other worlds, and what would make a good story for them to learn from. Then I realized children love animals and fun things to do. I have a flying horse, and I could tell about a young adventuresome boy that stumbles onto something magical and is taken to the secret worlds where the young at heart live. I liked the idea, and I would stay up most of the night and write out the story. Eventually I did go to sleep. That night I was with Shiss again in our tree house. I became aware while I was standing on the beach and the sun was shining overhead. I was still thinking about the story I was going to share with the children. Then I walked over to the tree house as Shiss was standing on the deck. She immediately waved. I walked up to her on the deck and gave her a hug. Goldie, I like your idea about the story and the boy with the flying horse. Children love to become involved in wonderful things they can't find on the earth. There are so many magical places for everyone. Once they hear your story, they will want to try and experience the other worlds for themselves, she said. That's what I'm considering, Shiss. This story might help to get them involved with their real awareness and discover a real adventure. I can see that most of them know the basics of what they need for their Earth life, but they don't have a source for the best part of themselves, so I will present something fun, I said. I have seen the children you are teaching on the inner. Many of them are open to new vistas, and there are a few who have been tied to the mental and emotional realms of obedience, but they will come around. They may question the validity of what you will be presenting, but they are children, so they will want to explore also. What they have come to know is from the strict upbringing their parents have given to them, and how they are to adhere to certain ideas that have been handed down for generations. Some people set themselves up as controllers of others, and in the same sense teach their children to follow certain rules so they can take over when the parents have gone. There is an inherent awareness within each being that knows it will return again to play out the same roles as it previously did. These are the people who are involved in the political, religious, educational, and monetary systems who have taken over. They are what are termed the ruling class of the common people. What you will be presenting expands beyond all reason and logic, and would be termed a fantasy of a child's imagination. The ruling class knows that if people become aware in the true sense of what you are proposing, they will lose control over the minds and emotions of those who support them, even their own children. Your position is one of showing each individual how to possibly free themselves from the restrictions that have been set forth by the rule makers. The children have the right to discover their real awareness, and to choose their life from a position of real experience, and to live any way they wish to. This is the reason that I am always with you, Goldie. Your wonderful heart wants to share the true reality that life is, and you are not afraid to do so. Who would believe that you can come to a place like this without the approval of some so-called self-appointed authority figure? We have real freedom without any decided restriction, and we don't need the monetary influence that most people seek in their lives as their only security. Rebazar Tars has taught us the real truth of ourselves, and the true reality life is. Life is light, and from the real light all has come into being, and what the great reality has decided all things to be, she said, with a big smile on her face. You are wonderful, Shiss. Just to listen to you, I can feel my being soar far past what I can comprehend. I have a dream of the great reality, and what it is, and I know that some day I will meet that dream and see it for myself, I said. Shiss and I went in the tree house and sat on the bed. I stared at the ceiling and thought about the children and what to present to them. I knew that I would be learning from them, as I taught what they were looking to learn from me. I was now having the best experience of my life, and I could learn more about the creative nature of myself by teaching. I was finally able to be in the position of what had real value to others. Shiss and I talked until I left. I soon woke up in my bed back at the school. It was early morning, and I had an hour or so before the children would arrive. I still didn't have the whole idea for the story, so I thought I would wait and see what the children had to say. They began arriving on time, and assembled themselves in. For the first half of the day, up until lunchtime, I went over the basic lessons of academic study. When lunchtime came, and the children were out playing, I sat at my desk, going over the story I had started. As I was thinking and daydreaming, I could see the children playing outside and enjoying themselves. Children are such free beings, and they are always connected to the true reality life is, because of their open attitude. When they came back in and were all seated, I asked them if they would like to hear a story I was writing. They agreed, so I told them what I had written. There once lived in time and space a young boy that was brought to a secret tribe that no one knew about. The child was a gift from the light men who roamed the unseen worlds to aid those who wanted to know about the beautiful regions beyond the earth that most humans could not see with their physical eyes. The tribe lived in the most remote area, on the highest mountains, above all the people of the world. They never left the mountains, because they had been taught by the light men of the Great Being how to survive where they were, without needing anything from the rest of the world. They had already lived for many lifetimes, and finally came into the position of being able to sustain without almost anything. This would be their last lifetime on Earth, because they had earned their way out of the old cycle of rebirth. The child who was brought to them was called Flying Feather, because he could actually fly. No one else in the tribe could fly, even though they were very wise and knew things the people who lived on the rest of the world didn't know. He had been trained to develop his ability to fly, so he could aid the tribe with their needs, because everything had to be brought to them, or they would have to go down the mountainsides, which were very dangerous. Flying Feather was now about 14 years, according to the worldly standards. He was also taught the real secrets of the Great Being, and how to remove himself from his limited body form, which all the tribe knew how to do also. Within his unseen worlds, he was also free to travel anywhere he liked. He had a friend in his worlds, a flying winged horse he would ride. He named the horse Flying Friend. The light men would show Flying Feather new worlds that existed beyond the minds and reach of the humans. They would also teach him the secrets of real survival that very few of the body world people knew. Young Flying Feather would also explore the unseen worlds on his own at times. One of the places he liked to go was to the great ocean, that was always a beautiful blue, with a clear sky overhead, along with a brilliant sun that always shined. He liked to walk on the sand and play in the water with his horse. They took many trips together to the other worlds. Flying Feather had many friends in the secret worlds that he liked to see and be with. One of his friends was a young girl named Shorsu. She had a flying horse like his. They would both ride through the skies together, up beyond the clouds, and to many far away places. Flying Feather would return to the tribe after his inner visits, and tell them of his adventures within the unseen worlds, and relate the great wisdom the Light Men would share with him. The tribe members would always listen very closely to what Flying Feather said, because they knew the wisdom from the Light Men was very special, and it aided them in their understanding of the Great Being. Flying Feather was a special child that only came along so often to reveal the wonders that life was willing to share. He would always keep the secrets of what he knew from those who did not appreciate the beauty and love that was very special to know about, I said, as I looked at the children.